So how did I get involved with wind power? Well, my first encounter was when I was working for an electric utility as a power engineer. And one of our customers for the utility installed a turbine just like this in Sigourney, Iowa. And my boss said, Tom, you got to go over there and test that turbine out and make sure it's not going to adversely impact our little electric system. This is just 4 kilowatts. It's not 4 toasters worth, 4 electric toasters worth of power. But anyway, that's what I did. And the electric utility really frowned on people generating their own electricity. I wonder why. And I work for an electric utility, and don't get me wrong, it's a great job. I really enjoyed it. I thought I was doing my God's work, because what's one of the most valuable things that we have today for our society is a reliable source of electricity. Modern society just can't function without reliable electricity. 99.98% of the time, electricity is on, and that's what makes life. And part of my job as a power engineer was reliable, make it reliable, get the lights back on as quick as possible. Never have a blackout, area-wide blackout, or regional blackout. So that's what I did. But I left the utility about 5 years after this, went back to the family farm, and I became a self-employed engineer, a consulting engineer, and I help utilities plan for the future, look out into the future. How much electricity are your customers going to be using in the future? And then what's the best way to meet that? What kind of generator plans do you have? I had no intention to get involved in wind power at all. Yes?
Those are different ways. Can you explain those different ways?
Yeah, this is a little tip break out here. And you design a wind turbine so that it just doesn't blow up. That's the main thing, is don't let the rotor go too fast and then fly apart. So there's a spring on here. So if this gets going too fast, the centrifugal force will let that paddle fall out, and then that paddle will crosswise to the wind. It'll be like pushing down on the wind, and it's like a brake. It's a dynamic brake, and it'll keep the blades from going too fast. So that's what that is. So I was doing work for a guy named Ken, who was a manager of Waverly Light Power. And I was projecting how much electricity he needed for the future. I was not involved with wind power. And he said, young boy, you're missing your column here. With the last name of Wind. So I'll tell you what, we have a television crew from Waterloo coming to Waverly in about an hour. And they're going to do a little story about an anemometer, a test anemometer that we put up on a sewage treatment plant. We're testing to see if we have enough wind to put up a wind turbine there. Just come out and watch it, and we all talk and all that. So I went out there, the TV crew from Waterloo was there, and the reporter was asking Glenn, what this purpose was, and all of a sudden I said, Tom, over here. I'm going to get in trouble now. So I came over there, and the reporter put the microphone right here. And what do you think about this wind power project? Go win! Go win! So that's pretty much how I got involved. Somebody said, you need to get involved with this area of wind power. So a few years after that incident, that interview, Glenn and his utility put up this wind turbine around here. He was the first utility in Iowa to put up a wind turbine. So, like I said before, the energy crisis also spurred Iowa into action. And the first energy crisis in 1974, Iowa had no fossil fuels, no commercially viable fossil fuels. We had some coal, so we got into coal mines, very thin layers of coal, high sulfur, dirty coal, was not economical to use. And then the Iowa DNR kind of got on this kick that we insufficient, and we needed to look at renewable energy. And so the Iowa legislature responded after the Democrats took control in the midterm election, and they pushed through some progressive policies. And like Harold said, we were the first nation, the first state in the nation to adopt what we call a renewable portfolio standard. REP here required 2% of electricity that the electric utilities generated to come from renewable energy. That was a mandate. And it was a controversial requirement. And some utilities actually thought that hydroelectric power would provide much of this power. And from the time that the law was passed, 1983, took 16 years, nothing happened. Utilities did not put any wind turbines in to speak of. They took it to court, they lobbied, they did everything they could to avoid that mandate. They did do a study looking at hydroelectric power in Iowa, and I just thought it was interesting. I took the results from a study done for Greene County, Iowa, and these are the lines, squiggly lines, are the creeks and rivers in the county, and they looked at all 99 counties and determined, well, how much, if we developed all of our streams for hydroelectric power, how much power could we get? And the conclusion was that there was not really enough power out there to meet this 2% requirement. And if you look at here, there are no usable sites for what we call a low, small hydro. There were some potential sites for what they call low power conventional sites, green, remember those, potential low power unconventional sites, which are the purple places, and potential micro hydro sites. So these would be just areas where there's embankments along the creek or river. You can put a small dam in there and generate small amount of power. None of those economically feasible by the laws. Technically feasible, yes. Economically feasible, no. So the utilities said, we can't do this. We can't meet this 2% requirement for renewable energy. So while the utilities were saying, no, we can't do this, another group of entities stepped forward and started doing stuff. And the first one was the school system. 1992, Spirit Lake School. How many of you have seen the winter of Spirit Lake School? 2, 3, 4, yeah. And they first installed it, and it was a real challenge. Harold Overman, the superintendent of the school there, saw what had happened in California and said, why not Iowa? Why can't we do this now? And so after many battles with the utility, we finally convinced the school board and all that to put up a wind turbine. That turbine paid for itself in 7 years, and it lasted for over 20 years. And then another school system in Royal, Iowa. This is a used wind turbine out of California. They installed it. And then in Nevada, the banker, a retired banker, and his sister donated 2 wind turbines. One to the hospital, one to the school. And they're about $250,000 each donated to the school and hospital for their benefit. And then a farmer, George Braxton, up near Sibley, Iowa, installed 5 turbines, used turbines, relatively small, that he bought from California. So while the utilities were saying, no, we can't do this, other entities, schools and farmers, and said, hey, we can do this. And so there were many small projects built by 1999, so for the next 7 years. And over that time, the amount of wind power in Iowa grew from 0, essentially, other than really small turbines, to about 5 megawatts of power. And the first project I was involved with, really as an engineer, was this project right here in municipal. 7 municipal utilities in Iowa went together and put up 3 turbines near Alabama, Ohio. How many of you have seen those 3 turbines right outside of Alabama? I didn't think anybody would see those. Anyway, so that made this jump up here in 1998 to that value. So as an engineer, that was the first time Schaefer Manufacturing along I-80 by Adair. Does anybody know what happened to that turbine? It got taken down and taken to Alaska, put back to use for another extended period of time. And the reason it was taken down here is you see how close this is to the building? It was like, what, 15 or 20 feet away. And one time there was some ice on the blades, and the winter was operating, and threw a chunk of ice over the top of the building into the parking lot where the employees had broke a window in a car. And it hadn't occurred, I think it would have been 15 years before that happened. But once that happened, the insurance company, started getting, hey, we need to do something here, And so the owner called me up and said, hey, I need to move this wind turbine or something, And so we found a buyer and went to Alaska. And then there was a turbine by Boondocks. How many of you have seen that old wind turbine by a motel at Boondocks? Again, a huge turbine that had already ran for 15 years in California. Right out here, piece by piece, assembled by this guy, the owner of the motel. Why did he? Oh, he just liked wind power. He just wanted to be independent. He wanted to generate his own power. And so he did. And that wind turbine worked for many, many years. So why does Iowa now have so many wind turbines? And this is a map of the United States. The average annual wind speed in the United States. The purple areas are the highest wind speed, and the green areas are the lowest wind speed. There are essentially no wind turbines in that part of the country, the green areas. You have to have areas that are either purple, lavender, or brown, really economical. So, Iowa is not the windiest state. It's North Dakota, or South Dakota, or Nebraska, or even Kansas. But Iowa has more wind turbines than any of those other states. And the reason is because how many people live in North Dakota? So we have more people. We have 3.3 million people here. These other states don't usually have very many people. And secondly was policy, government policy. It makes all the difference in the world. If you want to create and help an industry, government, if they want it to happen, they will create policies that somehow make the business make sense. So the first large-scale wind farm in the Midwest was not in Iowa. It was up at Lake Benton. How many of you have been by Lake Benton before? Yes, Sue has, because she's a Churdan member. Anybody else? Well, Lake Benton's kind of unique. Have you heard of the M&M divide? You know what the M&M divide is? Anybody? Yeah, Missouri and the Mississippi divide. So if it rains on one side of the divide, the water goes off to Missouri, and the other side goes to Mississippi. Well, the M&M divide goes right through Lake Benton here. It comes right down into Iowa, right down to that crescent. It comes right through the area. That's the highest elevation in the state. And likewise, is the windiest at the highest elevation. That's kind of a rule of thumb. The higher your elevation, the windier it is. And of course, the more it makes sense to build a car. But Lake Benton is really unique because there's like a hole in the M&M divide. You come along here, and all of a sudden you drop down about 250 feet, and then there's just Lake Benton down here. It's a beautiful little lake, 500 to 1,000 acre lake there, a little town called Lake Benton. And then as you go right up down, you immediately rise up 250 feet to the Buffalo Ridge again. And it's that combination of having that drop and then the high hill. It's just like walking to the high hill on your farm or something, and being up there, and you can always catch a little more wind up there. And so Lake Benton is really a windy spot, one of the windiest spots, probably Minnesota. That was the first wind farm installed right there. I took that picture. I was standing on top of the cell looking at the other wind turbines there. So wind farms started in Iowa in 1999. The utilities, after exhausting all remedies for avoiding the 2% mandate, they finally agreed to do it in 1999. So there was 3 wind farms installed, 2 by Storm Lake and 1 by Clear Lake. And here's where they were at. Here's Alta is right about here. Storm Lake would be right here, and Cherokee, I think, is where Cherokee is. But anyway, here's one wind farm, here's a second wind farm, and then this is Basin City's right here, and this is Spirit.